like to ask you a question. Did you ever want to be the master of your own world? Decide who gets to be in that world, what they do, what they say, and most importantly, how things turn out. I never could do that. Hi, I'm Bruce Blitz, and welcome to Cartooning with Blitz. Now, the kind of world I'm talking about is comic strips, and that's what we'll be doing today, creating our own comic strip. Now, for our feature of the day, a special guest cartoonist will be joining us, so you don't want to miss that. Now, for our doodle trick portion, frog tunes. So stay around for that. I know you'll like it. So if you're ready, all right, let's get started. 2 points. Okay. I like to show you a comic strip that I've already done, and it stars me. I put myself in this comic strip. And in the first panel there, I'm sitting there with my son, and he's saying, "Drawing cartoons in the computer is fun, Dad." And on the second panel, he's still saying, "You just use this electronic pad and pen, and it appears on the screen." And in the third panel, he says, "Of course, you need enough RAM, megahertz, disk space, and blah, blah, blah." And in the last panel, it's me looking at you, the viewer, and I'm thinking, he's a microchip off the old block. Now, that's a play on words from the old expression, he's a chip off the old block. We've updated it a little bit. Now, I'd like to go back and explain a little bit about what's called staging. Now, let's go back to that first panel there. Now, if you notice in the first panel, it's a shot of the two of us sitting there, and that establishes where we all are. It's the two of us, and you can see the computer, you can even see the mouse, and you see that he's drawing a little bit because you can even see his hand holding something. Okay, now in the next panel, it's just his hand, and now we're seeing what he sees, the computer screen, because we've already established where we are. On the third panel, now we're just seeing it from a different view, just to make it a little more interesting, from the computer looking out to him and I. So, in the last panel, this is what's called a medium close-up of me delivering the gag punchline. And there it is. So now, before I show you all the stages that it took to create the finished comic strip, let me talk a little bit more about staging. Let me show you a couple tricks on how to fill up the panel. And that's what those blocks are called, by the way, panels. So, let's get started. And up here, on this panel, I'm going to draw a close-up. Now, I'm going to call this a close-up, not a medium close-up. And that means that we're pretty tight in this fellow's face. There's his eyes, and let's have his expression up like this, and you see his mouth, and he's going, and he's thinking here. Let's just some hair, and let's put a thought balloon. This is a thought balloon when it's fluffy like that, and then you got these bubbles that tell you who's doing the thinking. In this case, it's him. Let's just put a word in there. He's thinking, oh, gulp. So that's a close-up. Now, over here, we're going to draw another close-up, but this time, for effect, we're going to draw an extreme close-up. And there might be times when you need something like this. Now, you still see his nose, and you see just a little bit of his mouth, and look at that. He's gritting his teeth, and he's really making his point. Now, let's see. Maybe he's saying, "I'll get them." And the little pointer going to him. Now, in this one here, well, this is sort of a medium close-up, a little bit like the one I just showed you with me and my son. So let's see, he's got a smile here, where you see most of the face. You see the whole head, but you see a little bit of the body too. There's his collar, and here's his eyes, and maybe he's saying something like, "I feel better now." Now, in the last one, just for effect, just to break things up a little bit, how about a silhouette? Now, silhouette is when you see everything is black, and you might have this for just to break things up, because you don't really have to see the action, just see a fellow walking. Maybe there's a tree, and here's the ground line, and even a house in the background, some clouds, maybe a thought balloon, he's thinking something there too. So there you have it, 4 ways to fill up the panel for staging. Okay, now let's go back and talk a little bit about how I actually did the comic strip. First, I started with a rough, and a rough is just that. What I did is I don't usually work this large for a rough, but I wanted you to see it. So this is where I broke it down to the staging, how I was going to tell my little gag, my little story, and I also broke it down to the dialogue at this point. Now, this is subject to change, but for right now, this is what works. And I just scribbled in how I was going to do it. Doesn't have to look good. It is only a frame of reference. So I'll tape this down right up top, like this, and it's just for me to refer to. Let's get a clean piece of paper here. And The next stage is I'm going to lay out my cartoon, the blocks, and put in some lines for the lettering guides. Now, a lot of people think that the cartoonist works the actual size you see it in the newspaper, which is about like that size, but it's not true. Actually, it's twice the actual reproduced size, sometimes more, and the size that you work is purely an individual choice. Everybody does a little bit different. So after you have that done, then you can actually put your dialogue in, like I have here, and then I penciled in the cartoon. And this is pretty precise at this point. This is pretty much how I want it to look. So at this point, all I have to do is go over it with ink and ink over what I've already got done. Now, like I say, it's pretty precise, but I could change it a little bit along the way because the ink is permanent, but this is still a little bit temporary here. So let's tape this down, and let's do a panel together. Now, I'm going to be using a medium point felt tip pen. Looks something like this. It's a felt tip, and it's not a very large point, but if I bear down, I can get a little bit of variation in line. So let's get started. Let me think. Let's do the, tell you what, let's do the last panel where I'm delivering the punchline. Move that over a little bit. Okay, just like that. Now I'll do the lettering first. Now, I'm always asked by people, where do ideas come from? Well, I'll tell you. If you create characters, regular characters, they have a personality, and that personality will dictate what kind of gags you can come up with. You know, in the old days, there was a strip called Crazy Cat, spelled with a K, and George Harriman was the name of the cartoonist, and there was only 3 characters in that strip. Crazy Cat, Ignatz the Mouse, and Officer Pup. It was a policeman. And it was just those 3 characters, and you'd think that with 3 characters, how would they come up with enough gags? But they did. And it was a great strip, too. Okay, now we've got the lettering in there. And let's see, let's put the fluffy bubbles for the thought balloon. I've got lots of favorites in comic strips, and my sister and I, every Sunday morning, would read the funnies together. And my parents used to buy both papers. In Philadelphia, we had 2 papers, with the Inquirer and the Bulletin. That way we'd get all the comic strips that were out because each one had their own little set of characters, own comic strips. Let's put the ear in. And we would sit there and read them all. I used to love Smokey Stover with Bill Holman. And let me see who else. Beetle Bailey with Mort Walker. And that strip is still around and doing great. And I like a lot of the new strips out. And one of them is our guest today, but I don't want to give it away who that is. All right, now let's put the facial outline and a lower lip, neck. Let's see. I just thought of another one. Bill Keane and the Family Circus. I have been reading that since I'm a little guy. And he used to have a character called Silly Philly. And it was a strip about Philadelphia. And Silly Philly was named after Philly, Philadelphia. And he had a lot of puns like we do around here from time to time. And a lot of sight gags, and when I was little, I said, that's what I want to do. I want to be a cartoonist, just like him. Okay, now, put the panels in. Now, you can use a ruler for the panels, or you can just do it freehand. And that kind of goes along with your individual style. If you look at the comic strip page, you'll see it both ways. Okay, so there's the last panel, and again, I'm going to bring out the finished comic strip again. You can take a look at that. Now, this is the size that it might end up in the newspaper when it's reproduced. If you're lucky enough to get your comic strip published, that's the size it would wind up. So you have to make sure that your lines will withstand a reduction like that. So you have to make sure that it's thick enough so when you reduce it, it won't break up. And breaking up is hard to do. So, don't put your pens and pencils down. Stay tuned for the feature of the day with our special guest. Too long either. Yeah. Well, my special guest today is recognized as both a political cartoonist and a comic strip artist, and since 1970, his political cartoons have been nationally syndicated and are seen in over 400 newspapers worldwide. And they're also seen in publications such as Newsweek, Time, and the list goes on. Now, his comic strip Mother Goose and Grimm appears in over 800 newspapers worldwide, and I got to tell you, it's one of those comic strips that you don't just read and, you know, chuckle to yourself. And I find myself laughing out loud if I'm sitting in a room by myself. It doesn't matter. He's written many books, TV shows, and he's even won the Pulitzer Prize and so many other awards too numerous to mention. I like to talk with him right now. My new friend, Mike Peters.
Aren't you great, Bruce?
No, that's the truth. Now, would you tell all our friends about Mother Goose and Grimm and how you came up with it and everything and then designed?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Okay.
You know, when I started drawing the dog, I wanted to have a dog that actually, Bruce, that actually acted like a dog. You know, if you look at Peanuts, Snoopy, God love him, you know, he plays golf and he does stuff and he flies airplanes. I wanted to have a dog that actually, you know, chased cars and would eat out of trash cans and would drink out of toilets.
Okay.
Bruce, the first time I drew Grimm drinking out of a toilet, I lost the whole city of Pittsburgh. Some lady in Pittsburgh, you know, saw this and then got a bunch of her friends to write in, and then the paper in Pittsburgh dropped the strip.
Oh, you mean it added up after a while?
Yeah, exactly. But then a bunch of people called in and said, "No, we like the dog drinking out of toilets because that's what our dog." So then there was a big pro-toilet, anti-toilet, like debate going on in Pittsburgh, and then they finally put me back, and I've been there ever since. Because
people know that really happens in real life.
Sure.
You know, people have dogs and they drink. I have 2 dogs and we keep the powder room door closed all the time. I mean, for that very reason.
And cartoonists too. I mean, you can't trust cartoonists.
They keep me out of it as well. That's true.
Oh gosh, no, so I've been doing the strip Mother Goose and Grimm since 1984, and this dog is me. I didn't realize it was me until one day. I love corn chips, and corn chips are going to kill me. It's fat and salt. I mean, it's the worst thing for my body. So what I would do, I would get a bag of corn chips, and I'd take a mouthful.
Right.
So while I'm eating it, I had the courage to crunch up the rest of the corn chips into little bitty, you know, things, and then drop them into the trash can. And this one day, my wife came in, and she saw me draped over the trash can, and I was licking my finger, kind of picking up you know, the crumbs at the bottom of the. And she said, "My God, I mean, you're the dog." You know, I didn't realize that you were the dog. So,
and you were getting the extra, and that's how the strip was born.
And that's how the strip was born.
Oh boy, that's amazing. Well, look at the design of this character. I mean, before he even says anything or does anything, it's funny already.
Aren't you sweet?
Well, now there's another character in the strip.
Yes.
And a very funny drawn animal, and I don't want to say who it is. You take it over
okay.
from here, okay?
Well, you know, my other favorite character, I've got like 3 cats at my house.
Okay.
And I realize that my cats don't act like Garfield and Yodi. I mean, and Odie. You know, Garfield is the one who is kind of in control, and Odie doesn't have a clue. In my house, my cats are deathly afraid of anything that the dogs do. And I don't know about you, but when you find out that you have control over someone else, then you do it all the time. Like, I love magic tricks, or I love tickling people who hate to be tickled.
Right, so once you know that it'll fool somebody, you do that magic trick over and over again to new people.
Exactly,
Sure.
exactly.
And never tell them how it's done.
Exactly. Oh, never. Well, no,
sure.
I always tell them.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm one of those kind of people. But I found out that my dogs, you know, they love scaring the cats, and they do it all the time.
Okay.
So that's my relationship between Attila and my little dog Grimm. The dog is always scaring the cat.
Well, it works very well. And okay, now I'd like to switch gears.
Yes.
And talk a little bit about political cartooning.
Yes.
And that's what you're also known as I mentioned.
Absolutely.
And would you explain to our friends at home how you come up with ideas and just how the whole process works?
Well, when you're sitting, I mean, when I'm sitting at a drawing board, a blank sheet of paper is really scary to me. I mean, it's the kind of thing that you go, "Oh my gosh, I got to fill it up." And so what I do is I start with a circle, and in that circle I put whatever topic I'm working on. Let's say the environment, And then I put spokes on the circle, make it like into a wheel. And then every spoke, I put something kind of relating to the thing that's in the center. Like this is the environment. So you want the ground to be cleaner, or you want Earth Day. You know, Americans made a day for the Earth in 1970, and every day at that time of year, they have a special day talking about Earth Day. And then put down recycling and air, and you fill up.
So it's like a free association thing going for you.
I mean, all you're doing, Bruce, is you're brainstorming with yourself.
So now you don't look at a blank piece of paper and get so scared you don't know where to begin.
No,
now you have a place to start.
You have a place to start, and
that's a great idea.
And it's not scary.
That's a great idea.
Now, I was looking at this earlier and thinking about Earth Day and the environment, and I was thinking about maybe a little cartoon. You know, the Earth, of course, is the thing that we live on. It's this round thing like this, and when you draw the Earth, you always have the latitude lines and the longitude lines.
I don't know which one are which, so don't ask me. Okay?
I think the ones that go up and down are the longitude lines. Okay. And then the sideways lines are the latitude lines. And then, but if you don't take care of the Earth, you know, then you can take this circle that we thought was the Earth, and you can turn it into like a skeleton like this.
Oh boy, look at that.
And so if you don't take care of the Earth, then it becomes all dirty, and it turns into this. And so that's how political cartoons are made.
It says a lot. Just one little picture says a million. That's great. That's great.
Aren't you fun? Well, I enjoy doing this.
Now, also in political cartooning, we always see presidents and political figures and public figures. So, would you do a couple presidents from the past for us?
Oh, of course.
Some of your favorites?
Oh, sure. Well, I think one of my favorite presidents. Now these are all hysterical and historical presidents.
Historical?
Okay, I think my favorite guy that I started drawing when I was a kid is this guy. It was a President Nixon, and President Nixon, God love him, you know, he was the first president to kind of have to resign, but he was a great person to draw. I would draw his nose and his little eyebrows, like that, heavy eyebrows, and then you'd put little dots under his eyebrows like that, and you have little nostrils like this, and little bags under his thing, and then he had a little forehead like this with hair, and then he had some cheeks that we called jowls that were real large, you know, almost looked like a chipmunk or something, and put that on. And then you'd have his little mouth and his little chin. Now, one thing that you never saw about Nixon was you never saw his neck. Most people have a neck that come down like this and shoulders like that, but Nixon's shoulders would start about here, you know. And so he was always the president. You know, the president. Yes. Okay, now that's my favorite guy.
That's great.
And now my second favorite guy was a guy named Jimmy Carter. And Jimmy Carter, he had a little nose like this. He had little dots for eyes. He was a peanut farmer, so his hair was always kind of wind-blown. He was always outside on the farm like that. He had two big cheeks like this and a large upper lip like that. But the thing that we loved about Jimmy Carter was this fabulous smile. And it just kept going, and the more he was in the presidency, the more teeth he had. And then when he was really happy, he had a whole other set down here. You know, it just came coming. You know, I know.
We hope he doesn't get any happier. We don't know what else we're going to see here. I mean, this is.
I know. Now, I think I'm the only guy who can draw Jimmy Carter at the age of 99 years old. But I don't know if we have time.
Go ahead.
It's very quick. It's just a side view of Jimmy Carter, and I'll start with his famous smile and this wonderful smile that he had. Now, this is Jimmy Carter at the age of 99, and you just take his famous smile and then you put it in a big glass of water like this. See? So it's cheap, you know.
That's terrible.
You know, I know, it's terrible.
Let's draw every president that ever lived. No, I'm only kidding. Unfortunately, we're out of time. All right, have you do just that. And Mike, I want to thank you so much for coming today.
Bruce,
it's been a real treat for us at home.
It was a treat.
Everybody,
it was an absolute treat.
Well, stay tuned now for Cartoon Doodle Tricks. I want to tell you, Mike, this was great. Thanks so much for coming. I like this one right here in the drawer. Welcome to today's Doodle Tricks, and I got some friends stop by because they love when I do Doodle Tricks. How you doing, guys? Good?
Fine. I'm good.
Now, do you remember in the beginning of the show I said we would do frog tunes? Frog tunes, can you imagine? We're going to do frog tunes today, and we're going to start with the word frog. Spell frog. Come on, this is easy.
F.
Yep.
R.
Right?
O.
Right?
G.
You got it. Okay, there's your first frog tune. We're done. Okay, the next one we're going to do... No, I'm only kidding. We're going to continue this. Ready? Now watch this. We're going to start by putting an I right over here into the O, and put another I right up there. Now, if we continue this R all the way around like that, and put some detail in this, have a frog face, and let's put a tongue on him like that. Pretty crazy looking frog so far, isn't he? Well, let's see. Let's put his stomach in, and here's his front legs, and here's his back legs. Now, I have a question. What food do frogs like to eat? Anybody? How about you, Rosanna?
Flies.
Flies? They like to eat flies, right. So we'll take that F and we'll write flies. And he's looking at that with the old dotted line effect and a heart because he loves to eat flies. Let's put him on a lily pad with there's nothing more than a free-form shape and some water in the background. You like that?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do another one. Okay, this time I'm going to start with a shape and then I'll ask you what it is. Curved line like this, and a wavy line over here. And let's see, over here, a couple lines like this, and some grass. Anybody know what that is? How about you, Shanae?
Mushroom?
A mushroom. How'd you know? That's pretty good. Okay. And another word for mushroom is a toadstool. Okay, so now, if I put a little detail, like a circle there, and a circle there, and a dot in there, and a dot there, we could turn a toadstool into a toad. Okay, so now let's put some back legs on this guy. And some feet. We'll give him pointy, webbed feet. And some detail. Now, let me ask you a question. What always happens in every story where there's a toad or a frog, what do they always turn into? Anybody?
Prince.
A prince, that's right. Now, how do they get to be a prince? They get kissed by a beautiful princess, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
and today we've got two beautiful princesses here. So what I want you guys to do is to throw a kiss to the picture. Well, it didn't work. Try one more time. Another one. Go ahead. I think it worked that time. Because if you turn this over, he turns into a handsome prince. Huh? You like that? I'll put some more detail on it. Some buttons. And there you have it. A handsome, I don't know how handsome he is, but he's a prince of a guy. I know that much. And that's all the time we have for today, and I hope you've enjoyed it at home. And how about you guys? You like it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, for our tip of the day, it's better to wear out than to rust out. So keep going. Look at this guy. At least he's accomplishing something, right?
Yeah, that's tight.
I'm Bruce Blica. You know what? In keeping with today's comic strip theme, I'm Bruce Blica saying thanks for being with me, and
Keep on cartooning!